Okay, so this week's lesson is all about rhythm and some things that you can do to make your rhythm playing sound better. And we're going to take some basic chord shapes and I'm going to show you how to add some little flourishes and some embellishments to those to make them really stand out and sound better. And this is the kind of stuff I would have given anything if somebody had showed me early on in my playing. It took me years and years to figure this stuff out. There's really not a lot of information on rhythm embellishments or flourishes. It's even hard to sort of describe it. I'll give you an example here in just a second, but that's what I'm talking about. This is not technical, it's not difficult to do, but it can make your playing sound so much better. And so I'm going to start off by just issuing a challenge, let's say. So we're going to take three chords. Here's your challenge. Take three chords, a G chord, a D chord, and an E minor chord. And I want you to play them at a slow tempo, let's say 80 beats a minute, but make them sound interesting. Make it sound interesting. Playing those three chords, what would you do? Now I realize it's very open-ended. It depends on what else is going on. But what most of us would do if we saw that, we would go, okay, 80 beats a minute. So we would do something like this. Right? That's my G, D, and E minor. It's technically right. There's nothing wrong there. And that might be appropriate if there was a vocal or something. But what I'm talking about in this lesson is taking those same chords and doing something like this. Now watch this. We're going to go down and add a few more chords. Here's a C, back to the D, back to the C, to the D. We're going to go to the C, but walk it down to an A minor. And then to a D7. And then we'll go back to our G and end it there. So that's what I'm talking about. Doesn't that sound a lot better than just, it's just more interesting, I guess. And so everything I just showed you there was what we're going to talk about in this lesson. But it's all just little ideas that are connected to chord shapes. It's really not technical. And so this lesson I have split into two parts. In this video, we're going to go through the first half of all of that. If you'd like to watch the second half, get the tablature for everything, all those extras that you can practice this material with, you can get those by going to activemelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP566. Okay, three chords to start with, G, D, and E minor. Now the G that I played was like this. So I came here into this position. Where I'm at is I'm playing a G chord using the E shape. This goes back to the cage system. I'll put a link up for those of you that want a reference to that and all the things you can do in the E shape. But basically, if I were to play the full bar chord, I would do a full bar there on the 3rd fret. And then these three fingers are making the E shape. Now, I don't have to make a bar chord. There's no rules in this stuff, right? You could just play a part of the chord, or a part of, well, it's still playing the full chord, but a part of that shape. And so what I'm doing here is I'm barring the first two strings on the 3rd fret, middle finger on the 4th fret 3rd string, ring finger on the 5th fret 4th string. And I'm playing those notes out of that chord. It makes it easier. First of all, I don't have to make a full bar chord. But second reason I do that is it frees up my pinky. The reason you want your pinky free is I can go like this. Now that may not seem like much, but I've just created a G sus4 chord. And I can do a lot even with that simple idea. I mean, you've heard that in songs, right? And that's just freeing up your pinky out of that E shape. Now, there's other things you can do. I could also put it down on the 5th fret 2nd string and play that kind of thing, which is a nice little lick off of that chord shape. I could also come up here, stretch it up here, and play a G7. So this would be like a 6th interval, and then that gets into the 7. So you could go, right? All of that stuff is based off of your E shape there. Now, the other thing that I didn't mention is when I went into this, I went like this. So I hammered on with my middle finger. It's a simple thing, but it's a little embellishment off of that E shape. So I did all of that to represent my G chord. You could also slide into the chord. But doesn't that sound better than... That just sounds kind of bland and almost too vanilla in comparison. So now the next chord is a D. And I came up here and went like this, played my D chord here using the A shape. And I didn't really do any more to that chord, but what I did do was, remember the chords are going to be G, D, and E minor. So it's G, D, and then the E minor. And I played my E minor up here using that A minor shape. But the reason I'm mentioning the E minor chord is because what I did in between those two chords to get from the D to the E minor was this. Ah, isn't that nice? It's a transition chord. Now, that wasn't on the chord chart, but I know if I'm going, let's just look at the root notes here. If I'm going from my D note, which is here, to my E, which is here, there's a fret in between those two. And if I was playing bass, for example, I might go and hit that, chromatically, hitting that note in between. So you can also play a full chord around that. So I played my D chord, I played this, which is a D sharp diminished 7 chord. It's a perfect little transition chord to get you to the next chord up the way. So when you're playing a major chord to a minor chord like that, you can play that transition chord in between, which is your sharp diminished 7 chord. All right, so let me show you the voicing for this diminished 7 chord off of this A shape. So if we're playing our D chord using the A shape, we can take our pinky. This is how I do it anyway. I put my pinky on the 7th fret 2nd string. My index finger goes down on the 5th fret 3rd string. Ring finger goes down on the 7th fret 4th string. So you have that, and then you've got your middle finger, which can go down on that D sharp note, the 6th fret 5th string. All right, so that one may just feel a little awkward the first couple times you do it if you're not used to playing that chord shape, but just practice going, right? It's a nice little step up, and then you can go to the next chord up, which is our E minor. So that wasn't written down in the challenge that I issued. The chords were G, D, and E minor. But don't think of this stuff so literal. If you know a transition chord to get you from one chord to the other, and it seems appropriate, do it, play it. Okay. Then I went to the E minor, which is up here. Now these 3 fingers are playing my A minor shape, right? So this would be like, there's my E chord using the A shape, flat the 3rd, and you get the A minor shape. Now that's an E minor chord, right? And the embellishment that I played here goes like this. Okay, let's talk about that. So E minor chord using the A minor shape, I strummed it like 5 times, sort of quietly, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, stop. And then I went like this. And the way that I'm playing that is up here on the 1st string, I do a hammer on between the 7th fret and the 10th fret. I use my index finger, my pinky, and then watch this. So after that little hammer on pull off, we're gonna play the little stair step, right? That's my E minor triad there, but I'm gonna arpeggiate. So 8th fret 2nd string, 9th fret 3rd string. So, and then we're gonna come down to the 7th fret 3rd string, and then 9th fret 4th string. So, and then the note that I hit after that was my low 6th string, which is an open string, might as well, right? So you can take advantage of those open strings. When you hit them, you can take your hand off the fretboard and then reposition it. So I came down and played my E minor down here. Isn't that cool, that sound? Now this little embellishment, the way you can think about this is, this would be like my E minor pentatonic scale pattern 4. Here's my E minor chord. Here's my E minor pentatonic scale pattern 4. It's connected there. And inside that, is that E minor arpeggio. There's the stair step shape that I talk about a lot, right? You can start to connect this stuff. So this little lick then, you can see, oh yeah, just doing that, which is out of the minor pentatonic scale, and then that's just the arpeggio of that E minor chord, the triad. And then those notes are out of the minor pentatonic scale pattern 4. So there was nothing there that was weird. You're just connecting the chord and the pentatonic scale to make a little flourish. Okay, so now we're going to repeat those same 3 chords, G, D, and E minor. Now, one thing I could do to get back to the G chord is I could play the It's 5 chord. You can always play the 5 chord of the chord you're going to. You can think of that as a secondary dominant chord. I'll put a link up that goes into more detail on what a secondary dominant chord is. Remember when we went from that D to the E minor, we had a little chord in between, the D sharp diminished 7. Well, you can also think of these secondary dominant chords in that respect. If you're looking for a chord to get you to a chord, the perfect answer usually is whatever that chord's 5 chord is. So if we're going back to the 1 chord, which is our G, we go to its 5 chord to get there. So after the little, I could have went like this, right? That's a perfect chord to pull me back. Tension, actually you can make it a D7, and then we'll go back and release that tension to the G. Okay, so the second time through I went, right? Look at this little embellishment. There's my G chord using the E shape, but then I came up here. What is that? Well, look at those 3 fingers. What shape are they making? It's the same as my D chord, right, in first position. If I were to play it all the way up here, on this 8th fret 2nd string, that's my G note. That defines the name of this triad. So just always remember that. The point of that triangle, that note, is the name of this chord triad. So that's my G chord up here, using that D shape. It's also in the C shape. Same little triad is in both. But little hammer on there with my pinky, just like you do in first position when you play a D chord. I'm doing the same thing. Pinky's going down on the 8th fret 1st string to, flourish that chord. So you have your G. Then I went back to my D here using the A shape, and then watch this. To pull me into the E minor. Now that's different than what we did the first time. The first time we'd play the D sharp diminished 7, and then the E minor. This time I played the D, and then just a sort of little lick. And that lick is kind of a Hendrix style thing off of this A shape. So you have the A shape here. Let's think cage system for 1 minute. And then where this bar is, I play that with my pinky. That's the chord, right? That's the triad. If I come up and play it up here with my index finger, now I'm in the G shape, right? Now in this G shape, now remember, it's still a D chord, but I'm talking shapes from the cage system. Now in this shape, I can do all these little flourishes here between where my bar is, and then in this case it would be the 9th fret. So you skip the fret after the bar, and then you can come up here and play 4th string. Now I'm playing strings 4 and 3 to get that harmony. Isn't that cool? And then I can come down and play strings 5 and 4. That's another great harmony. Look at all these things I can do. And then I can come up here and play on strings 2 and 3. But in my mind, these are all just connections to that triad. So I played my D chord, and then I came up into this position and did that hammer on between the 7th fret and the 9th fret on the 4th string, but I played strings 4 and 3. Then after I played that, I took my ring finger off and then played a hammer on pull off. Pinky comes down on the 10th fret 5th string, and then my index finger goes down on that 7th fret 5th string, and then I can make that E minor chord. Isn't that a cool transition to get you from the D to the E minor? It's kind of a Leonard Skinner kind of vibe. So from the G to the D to the E minor. All right, so now this little song composition is going to go into the next part, which is the C to the D. And there's other ideas in that, but I'm going to save those for the part 2 video. That's a lot of information already that's crammed into the part 1 video. So I hope you'll join us in part 2 where we'll go over the rest of this. And remember, you'd have access to the tablature for this as well. ActiveMelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page and search for EP566. All right, so if you've liked this lesson and picked up an idea or two, maybe it's something you haven't thought of before, leave a comment below and let me know what that is. Or even if you just enjoyed it, leave a comment. If you're confused by anything, leave a comment on that. I will try and respond to all of that stuff. All right, that's what we have for this part 1 video. I'll see you in part 2 where we'll go over the rest.